Out front now, Freddy Guevara. He is the former vice president of the Venezuelan parliament, an opposition politician now living in exile. You had been jailed by the Maduro government, so much there that you endured. And to talk about Paul Rieckhoff here with us, as he so often is, and Richard Quest as well. All right, so just with this news just coming out, you heard what Stefano was saying. They're struggling to produce 1 million barrels.
Yeah, they're producing roughly 850,000 a day.
But Trump's getting 30 to 50 million of the.
So I assume that's going to take all of that production, put it on ships that are not sanctioned, because the sanctions are still in place, and somehow get them to the United States, this heavy crude, which, by the way, the US is quite good at refining, and do with it, I have know not what.
But you're saying the most they have is under 1 million. So when he says 30 to 50 million, that is, at the current rate of production, 30 to 50 years away. I understand he says there'll be more investment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the dilemmas just are lunacy. He's going to be taking the entire production of Venezuela for the foreseeable future, if he can even do that and get the ships and get it there.
Okay, so the numbers don't add up in any way, shape, or form, as Richard's saying right now, Paul. But even if they did, they don't, but even if they did, you'd be looking at current prices of $1.8 billion to $3 billion. That might maybe pay for the operation itself to take out Maduro.
Can we just stop and say this is all dangerous, outrageous, ridiculous, and deeply un-American? We don't plunder. We don't pillage. We don't send our military in to take people's stuff. And this is breaking a very important compact that we have with our own American values. When American troops stand up for other countries, the only thing we ask for is a place to bury our dead. We don't ask for their oil. We don't go in there to take their riches. And he is in direct violation with the very foundation of what this country is all about. So before we get into the numbers, we have to talk about how deeply this is in conflict with core American values. That's what this is. I mean, what he's talking about here is ripping them off and taking their stuff. And if you don't, we're going to send in more troops. American troops did not sign up for this. This is why most of the country doesn't support it. This is why Congress hasn't authorized it. And I'm going to put something else on the table. If he supports it so much, why doesn't he send his own son? Barron Trump is 19 years old. He's eligible to sign up for the military. Let's stop with the chicken hawk stuff and find out who's going to put their own kids in if this is so important.
Oh, and you're talking about possibly military operations in multiple other countries as well. Freddie, I know that you're in regular contact with people in Venezuela, and you're hearing some things that the government is doing at this time, right? In this incredibly chaotic time that we're reporting on, that Stefano's been on the ground reporting on, that you say is creating what you call a terror state in the wake of Maduro's capture. So in the current, I don't want to use the word regime, but the current leader is Delcy Rodriguez. What are you hearing?
Well, as, just at the same time, while I'm here, I'm receiving these pictures. I don't know if we can show it, like people taking pictures of people from the regime receiving guns from the authorities. There's some civilians that are harassing the people in the country. And probably these guns were bought with the money from oil. So I know that this might sound very controversial, but of course, in an ideal world, we Venezuelans will love that that money will be administered by an elected Venezuelan government. But in this reality, and I have to say very clear, Venezuelans prefer that this money is administered by the United States, by these crooks that are using the oil to kidnap, torture, and destroy the Venezuelan population.
Okay, so you're saying that between the choice of the Delcy Rodriguez administration and Donald Trump, they would choose Donald Trump?
For sure.
But is that a choice that, I mean, as a former, opposition speaker in Parliament, I mean, can you imagine that you're in a decision like that's your decision tree?
I mean, we wouldn't like that. We tried to use elections, negotiations, protests. The United Nations, China, and Russia vetted everything. The ICC, the prosecutor was disbanded because his sister-in-law was the lawyer of Maduro. We tried the Organization of American States, and we even tried the mediation of Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico, Colombia, Gustavo Petro, and Lula from Brazil. And none of them helped us. So this is the outcome that we wanted? Of course not. We have been fighting for a negotiated solution from a long time ago. But Maduro built this pathway for himself and his cronies. And of course, we would like a different outcome, but this is the world that we live now. And between what we had before and this, I have to say it, I know this might sound surprising, but we Venezuelans prefer the situation.
Okay, and I understand. You're not saying it's a good situation. You're saying it's you have choices that you have. So in this context, though, I think it's important, Paul, to talk about the fact that this is the way that Trump has always thought. And we were talking earlier, I had a conversation with him years ago. He said, I don't know why we just don't go in and take all the Saudi Arabian oil and just take it. Why not? And that was just a conversation that we had. Then, actually, I had an interview with him. We were talking about Libya. It was right after the U.S. had gone in and backed the opposition forces that took out Gaddafi. And there's an eerie similarity in what he said then and what he's doing now, right? This whole coming in and taking the oil, use the word plunder, is not new. Here he is when he's saying what the U.S. should have done in Libya.
For the next 25 years, we want 50% of the oil. You know what they would have said? How about 75%? We'll give you that too. All right? Yeah. But now you can't go back because, they so-called won the war. We spent billions of dollars. They won the war. Why didn't we get oil? Why didn't we get oil for what we did? We made it possible. I mean, we knocked out Gaddafi. Nobody else knocked him out. We knocked him out through NATO, and we are NATO.
Yes.
Why didn't we get paid for that? We are very, very stupid. Our leaders are very, very stupid people.
This is not new. This is the same
this
exact
is Ukraine.
thing.
This is Ukraine and the minerals.
Minerals deal.
This is the modus operandi of the real estate developer who only knows the price of everything and the value of almost nothing. But what's interesting here is he has constructed, to your point, sir, he has constructed the arrangement in Caracas perfectly to his advantage. He's decapitated the regime. He's kept the basic policies there in place and the people to enforce it. And providing they do what he says, all will be well as far as he sees.
Right. So, I mean, it's not regime change, though, Freddie. That's the thing. That's why in the context of you saying you prefer this outcome to Maduro himself, but in a sense, it's just kind of this isn't regime change, it's a management change.
I believe that we have a big opportunity now. Of course, the removal of Maduro opens a path, but the job is far from being done. The only way that we can assure that this truly ends into a democratic transition, if it ends with an election, of course, and in the way from point A to B, we have the freedom of political prisoners and a lot of changes. So we don't believe that, development and we believe that we can align American interest and the Venezuelan freedom. I think that both things can be true at the same time. Of course, as I said, in a perfect world, this would have been different. But when people are in need, in survival state, like we are now, because as we're speaking, there's people in jails, tortured, being raped by this gang from the regime. These people just want to be free. And as I said, we would love that other people will help us. But the situation now is that the Americans were the only ones who took the chance and did what was required to do. And why I say this? Because we were not just facing an autocrat. It's very important that the Cuban regime, the Cuban dictatorship, have recognized that 32 military Cubans were being in the country and were killed by the military operation.
A number that we understand is significantly higher, but they're admitting 32 were killed in the operation.
That's what we're saying.
Here's the problem with all this. I mean, this harkens back to 20 years ago when I was in Iraq, where everybody said everything was going to get paid for and there was going to be a peaceful state and Iraq was going to look like New Jersey. Here's the problem: security. Who's going to handle security? Because what you're seeing now in Venezuela could be very much just the start. And Trump has said that we are going to handle Venezuela. That means American troops. And if it doesn't mean American troops, who does it mean? Who's going to establish security so you can have basic functioning society and so that people aren't killing each other in the streets? Because that's how this evolved in Iraq and could very well go the same way in Venezuela.
He is looking at the Iraq situation, though, as being like this. Iraq was producing 1 million barrels a day pre. Post and today, it's now producing 5 million barrels a day, and its economy's gone from 25 billion to 250 billion. So he looks at it as being, well, we've seen what happened there. We can replicate
it. And 200,000 U.S. troops.
And on his balance sheet is not 4,000 dead American troops and 200,000
No, because he's going to get the existing regime to do the work for him. That's how this plays out. It is. Sorry, sir.
No, that's how we hope it plans out. But hope is not a course of action.
So I understand. Of course, I understand because I have American friends. I'm now living in the United States. I've been working the 4 years in the university, and I understand where Americans come from, and I understand your history, I understand your recent traumas with Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, all of this. But the world is not just, you cannot see the world just with one lens. Venezuela is very different than Iraq and than Afghanistan. First of all, the first proof that we're not going to have a civil war is that Maduro was taken out by Americans in an helicopter in the main military base And there's nothing happening now in terms of like people fighting with each other with guns. Second thing, if you have a civil war, you have to have like at least two sides with guns. Venezuelans, we have the 70% of the country against this guy. I think it's more, but at least that was the one that was confirmed with the ballots.
Yeah.
We don't have guns. And the people who have the guns now, they are not necessarily supporting Maduro, because I understand that American power, military power is very good, but I don't think that you can take out Maduro.
Here's
without,
what's the same. Here's what's the
right?
same. The American public doesn't want it. The American public doesn't want boots on the ground. And now we know we're 200 troops on the ground. Hegseth has disclosed
Right.
that. We're also
Americans.
now just finding out 7 Americans were wounded. We're going to find out more about them. We're lucky that no one was killed. It's a testament to our military. But to think that this is going to be sustainable, especially if he starts to take on anything from Colombia to Cuba to Greenland, is fantasy land.
Oh,
and the most important thing is that Americans don't want our sons and daughters dying on foreign soil. That cuts across all partisan lines.
I understand your point, and I think that Americans have every right to make accountable their government and ask, and express their opinions. But I think one thing is different. One thing is saying we don't support this, and the other thing is saying Venezuela will be like Iraq, or Venezuelans don't want this, or as I heard like other people saying, free Maduro. Come on, this is a butcher, a dictator, a raper. So
Okay, on the
again,
free
I
Maduro
respect
point-
this point of view from Americans,
Yes.
and you have all the right. This is your country, your president, your government. But please don't weaponize the Venezuelan situation in the political
The
situation.
Americans
Right
are
now,
weaponizing the situation. President Trump is.
I mean, you talk about the oil, though.
That's
the
where this
reason-
comes from. The American public didn't want a war with Venezuela.
Okay,
So-
but what I mean is like, I think
Freddie,
that,
I just want to ask a question here, though, about this, because when you mention the oil and what Trump has said in the past and how Trump is treating the oil could be very important to whether Maduro actually is convicted. And that is held up, right? There's a Venezuelan investigative journalist, Roberto Diniz, says he thinks the entire legal strategy for Maduro will be to delay and then to say Trump wants to take Venezuela's oil, right? And that justification is going to be what undoes the entire case. Let me just play quickly what he said.
The other strategy probably will be to attempt of portray himself as a victim and show that everything related with his capture is just because Donald Trump is trying to get the Venezuelan oil.
It's not going to make a difference, I think, in terms of the case, because the courts will give huge deference to the executive. They've done it again and again. They will basically say, a piece of paper from the White House says this is the executive. Yeah, we accept it.
No, and that's certainly where the courts have gone in recent years. All right.
Noriega showed that.
Yes, and that's the precedent for this. All right, thank you all very much.